Hey guys, welcome to week 16 of class. This week we're going to be diving into the civil rights era, and specifically we're going to be looking at the experiences of African Americans through the civil rights era, albeit I do have a video on the development of second wave feminism and the emergence of these another women's rights movement with the publication of the Femme Mystique. So we will be looking at that, but predominantly we're going to be focusing again on the African American experiences. And there's a traditional narrative that places the civil rights movement as beginning with the 55 bus boycott and Rosa Parks not giving up her seat. There has been some recent history written by a historian by the last name of McGuire, and you're going to actually see some content of her text up this week. It's at the dark end of the street. And she provides a new and a very intriguing context to the civil rights movement, one that places Rosa Parks in a new light, but one which also argues that the catalyst and the main thrust behind the civil rights movement was not necessarily segregation, but rather sexual violence and the protection of the right for black women to have right to their own bodies. As opposed to being victims of sexual crimes by white men who habitually implemented their will against them. And so she sort of repitches this. And so, with this new historiography, there was no time for me to re-establish a new lecture. So I've brought it in a way that I think will help you see the argument and then hopefully contextualize that into the lecture that we do have for this week. But we are going to take a look at a number of different events, including the bus boycott. There will be a host of different things. And one of the questions that we will want to ask ourselves, and in fact Malcolm X brings this up in an interview that I'm going to have you watch this week. He says, look, I don't support Martin Luther King Jr. because Malcolm X was not convinced that the things that King was doing was actually benefiting black people. And in other words, actually he was arguing that it's not solving the problems of the black community. And some might pose that question for today. Are we better off, and why we as a society? Is America better off today? Are we less racist today? Is there greater equality today since the civil rights movement? And if you ask various people, those delimited as white and those delimited as not white, which is a unique binary, but if you ask various people within these categories of color, quote-unquote color, it's interesting to hear the difference of opinions. In some respects, white folk would say, yes, we have made progress, while in other respects, African Americans would argue that maybe we have not come so far. And I'm gleaning this information from a book written by Mary Waters called Black Identities, where she focuses in on West Indian immigrants. And so this is a topic that's really near and dear to me, as I've spent quite a bit of time studying this concept of race and color, and so I sort of want to pitch that this week and see what your guys' thoughts are. So there's 3 questions for discussion board this week that you need to upload by Thursday, and then you have a subsequent response by Sunday. So get that going. I'm interested to hear what your guys' opinions are on this. Again, it's an interesting topic, and it's one that I think is important to discuss. And I'd love to have these conversations in person, but of course with the online forum we can't do that. But that doesn't mean we can't attempt to address these concerns. And so as we do, let's of course be respectful of one another, but let's also be understanding that these are real concerns that people have, and we need to spend some time looking into them. So with that, that's what's going on this week. And then of course your final papers. So just be working on that, and otherwise I think that's all I got for you. So with that, go in peace, be warm and filled, and may the force be with you. Be blessed.